We have an update from Israel, hot off the press. Israel has had 3 elections in 12 months. And with the conclusion of the 3rd election, something prophetic has happened. And some of my, book readers, people who have followed the Divine Code books, the 2-volume, they have been asking me, Pastor Steve, is this the fulfillment of your chapter 58? The chapter that talks about Enoch, all right? I won't go into all of it right now. Maybe I'll read you a little snippet of it, but let me quote Enoch chapter 90, verse 1 and verse 5. I watched till in this manner the 35 shepherds pastured the sheep, and they each completed their period as they did the first, one after the other, each shepherd in his own period. So this is clearly talking about the different rulers over Israel. And he distinguishes between the other 3 that he talked about, which was written 4,000 years ago. So now we know the other 3 were King Saul, King David, King Solomon. What happens after them? The kingdom gets divided into north and south, and then there's a whole new dynasty. So he's predicting what's going to happen from the beginning of time. Enoch is only the 7th generation from Adam. He predicted all that was going to happen. So really, prophecy is nothing new. God has always revealed to each generation prophecy, and has given each generation prophets. He's reaching out to us. So then he says, I watched, in verse 5, the next 23 shepherds pastured. But when they completed their periods, they had pastured 58 times. See? So there are 2 groups of leaders. One group is in a series of 35. The next group is in a series of 23. All of this was written before 2020. Surely you would agree. Even if you think that some of these books were man-made and myths and doctored. Okay, but suspend your disbelief for a moment. This was written way before 2020. And it predicted 2 sets of leaders. Why 2 sets? Well, now we know, because Israel disappeared from 70 AD to 1947. So there was a huge gap between the 2 sets of leaders. It makes perfect sense. The first group of leaders counts 35 after King Solomon. So in my book, The Divine Code, I actually go through this number, 58. And also in my DVD series, I expand on some of this. So I forget which is in where, but in the End Time Code, the End Time Code DVDs, or Vimeo if you want to watch it by streaming. In the End Time Code, I talk about the list of 58 kings and rulers. But I'll give you a snippet. You know that number 19 is the number of royalty. So 19 kings in Judah, 19 kings in the southern kingdom. Plus there was 1 queen, so that makes 20. Then there were 12 Gentile rulers, counting from Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon all the way to Caesar of Rome. There were 12 Gentile rulers. So guess what? The Bible doesn't count it. It's like you just skip over it. It was halftime or something where the clock stopped, so they don't keep counting. Then we come back to the 10 Hasmonean kings, and then after, so you've already got 30 now. 19 plus 1 plus 10 is 30. Then you count 4 Herodian kings and 1 Jewish rebel leader named Simon Bar Kokhba. Guess what do you have? 30 plus 4 plus 1, exactly as Enoch predicted. And then that closes the first series, the Old Testament rulers. Then we go to the next series, and he says after this is the end time. It's the time of the Messiah. So it's really important. If the first set was right, we want to count the second set. How are we doing? Under the New Testament, we've only had Israel for less than 100 years. It was reborn in 1947. And they have no more kings, so you can't count kings in the same way. But what do they have? They have prime ministers and they have Knessets. Now, who's the ruler? If you count by prime minister, supposed to get 23 more leaders. We're only at prime minister number 12. 5 of them serve non-consecutive terms. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi they call him, has served 5 times. But he is only one of 12 prime ministers since the beginning of Israel. So if we have to wait for the prime ministers, then that means another 13 to go. If each of them serve 4 years, 13 times 4, 52, you got another 5 decades before Jesus comes back, if you're counting prime ministers. But Israel is not run by a prime minister, because that's why they call it a prime minister. A prime minister isn't the ruler of the country. He's only one member out of other parliamentary members. You understand the difference, right? So a prime minister would be more like the House Speaker inside of Congress. But it's Congress that would be ruling and making legislation. That's the picture. So really, Israel considers that their rulership is the Knesset, which is the great assembly. The Knesset is the assembly. And guess what? We're supposed to count how many? According to Enoch, 23 rulers in the New Testament before the end time. And up until a few days ago, we were in the 22nd Knesset. And this is fresh off the press, guys. On the 2nd of March, 2020, the 23rd Knesset was elected. And they were still confused about how were they going to form government because no single party in Israel ever has the total majority. So they cannot form government in that sense. And they were debating for a long time. And finally, on the 21st of March, 2020, on the Hebrew calendar, it's the 25th of Adar, the year 5780, Benjamin Netanyahu announced that a unity government has been formed with a rotating prime ministership between him and his rival Benny Gantz. So both of them are Benjamin. Both of them are the son of the right hand. And they're going to rotate prime ministership. So if God counts the Knesset as the ruler over Israel, then on the 2nd of March, 2020, the 5,000-year-old prophecy by one of the godliest human beings that ever lived, the prophet Enoch, was just fulfilled. We're at number 23. He says 35 plus 23 makes 58. Israel will have no more than 58. And these Knessets can go very fast. In fact, Knesset number 21 and 22 and 23 all came within the space of 2019 to 2020. They change. Every election is considered a new Knesset. So I don't know if God says, okay, I'll extend more time for you because that seems almost like fake counting. But according to the Israelis, they are in the 23rd rulership since they've been born as a nation. And guess what? That means that the shepherd of Enoch is the Knesset, and we have arrived at the 58th shepherd. Trump is also serving the 58th presidential term since George Washington. And you say, well, why does all that matter? Because the number 58 spells out in the Hebrew language, Noah. 5-8, Nun Het is Noah. And Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, in the days of 58, so it will be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. So Jesus would be very, very close. Again, if these things excite you, I don't believe any one particular sign or one particular number is something we follow because we're not following numerology. We're following Jesus. We're following God. But if you layer these coincidences and patterns and prophecies that I explain in the Divine Code books, and you realize, hey, they're all converging at the same time. You've got the 58 in Israel, the 58 in America. You've got the signs in the sky. You've got the 24 great American solar eclipse coming that's going to cross the continent of America. It happened in 2017. Then then the last time was 1776. Major sign for America. Are we near the end? It looks like it. It looks like it. Purify your heart. Serve Jesus. Don't skip church. If you can't go to a good church that preaches what you're listening to, pure, unadulterated, prophetic news, then come. Come and join online church. Come. We have room for you. I want to see at least 2,000 people joining online church. We're around 700 now. That's really good, but there's so many more. There should be millions of people joining, right? Millions. But I hope you come, I hope you join, and we're going to delve into these patterns more and more and more because they're all getting fulfilled right now. It's really, really quite exciting.